be a screw, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of, What If Issei, Rias enter Castlevania. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of pyrohelixdrago on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Docs. So a good amount of distrust is happening within the fallen angels, Issei said, fishing with Azazel. I'd put it to more along the lines of confusion, Azazel said to him. Some are just waiting to react while others are acting, Issei said, as it was no secret Azazel desired peace, something that many but not all also wanted. Others wanted revenge and bloodshed to keep the fight going. I sent a group here to watch. You want to see how they react, Azazel said, as Issei was fully capable if any of them acted outside their orders. How many? Issei asked curiously. 4 fallen, and I think they hired some exorcists, Azazel said, as he did on the rare occasion he would hire a few exorcists, as some had gotten raw deals in the end for some really dumb reasons by the church. So you tell your MSTR about being friends with the general of the fallen? He asked him curiously. No sirs, X knows already, and that's enough, it won't cause any problems, Issei said to him. Who are the fallen that you sent? He asked curiously. Calawarner, Rainier, Donasik, and Middlet, Azazel said to him. The last 2 are definitely traitors, Issei said, as those 2 were a little off when he met them, as Donasik dressed the part and if he was honest like a pervert as well, and Middlet was a child always craving some kinda confrontation, so it was not hard to guess she'd help the opposing side. I'm guessing this is Kokabil's doing? He asked him curiously. Yes, Azazel said to him shortly, and again Issei, I'm sorry, he said to him. It wasn't your fault, Issei said to him, clutching his chest. Flashback. Issei breathed heavily as he had a large circular hole in his chest and he heard the screams of Lenore, Kuroka, and Carmilla. If a sacrifice is made, a boon will be given in return, a gift of shared strength in your moment of need. This is that moment, partner, Drake said to Issei as he reminded him of one of his capabilities. I sacrifice my dash, Issei was saying before coughing up BLD. The sacred gear on his left hand glowed, knowing what he was going to say, acting on his feelings. Flashback end. I got into the fight, and I lost, Issei said to him. Got into a fight, Azazel said, as that wasn't what it was at all, as Issei was cornered and left no other option when he met Kokabil when inside the Grigori headquarters. Be careful, he said, knowing trouble found its way to Issei. Issei gave a small nod and walked away. My rival certainly does his title justice, a man with shite hair said to Azazel. I swear, Azazel said, rolling his eyes, you two are the opposite of the former hosts, he said to himself, as when Issei and Vale met there was a bond more than just rivals, as he saw no hate, just the longing to do better and seeing a worthy opponent. Next day. Issei was looking in the distance as the sun rose on the horizon. You're lucky I was the one on patrol, a woman wearing a red business suit said. More like sensed it out, Calawarner. Most of the exorcists are down below while one is in town, Issei said to her. His name is Free, be careful with him, he's a wild card and not the good kind, Calawarner said to him. Heard you became a devil, how are you not shaking like a leaf, she asked, knowing most if not all devils felt tense around, or especially in churches. I don't know exactly, Issei said, as he guessed the Belmont weapons were because of his BLD, but being around fallen or churches didn't even make him alert. Anyway, some of the members are disappearing, Calawarner said to him simply. I think they are being killed off. Exorcists may be like mercenaries, but their beliefs make them hard to rein in, Calawarner said, as if a group believed one thing they'd try to convert others to it or just kill them in order to root out weakness. That's unfortunate, Issei said to her, and I know Kokabil is involved, he said to her, seeing the uncomfortable look she had on her face. Please don't fight him again, Calawarner said to him in a pleading tone. I'm sorry but I have to, Issei said to her sadly. I know, Cal Warner said as she hated it but understood his longing. Anything I should know about, Issei asked referring to the exorcists down below. They are trying to siphon sacred gears from users to give it to someone else, Cal Warner said to him in a disgusted tone. Issei knew anything like that would kill the user. He knew about the process as Azazel had collected Vritra's pieces from deceased users able to somehow stop them from going to the next as he was curious about that particular sacred gears since it came from the same source but had multiple pieces. They plan to give it to a fallen, see how the transfer will act, Cal Warner said to him as fallen angels with sacred gears sounded terrifying as they were things made by God himself and they'd be in the hands of children of God. Who is the person chosen? Issei asked. It'd have to be someone random or possibly scouted out before having awakened their sacred gear as it was possible with powerful. Not sure but she should be here in a few days but apparently she was a big deal with the church while a part of it before being excommunicated, Cal Warner said to him. Thanks, I'll be an eye out, Issei said as he walked away. Been a long time, Cal Warner said remembering when they met. Flashback. Sir, are you sure this is wise? Cal Warner asked as she looked at a young Issei, a vampire girl, and a female Nikomata. Yeah, they're just here for training, could be fun, Azazel said to her. 30 minutes later. Issei had to admit Grigori headquarters was impressive, especially Azazel's storages, as the man certainly was a collector and did get into whatever caught his interest. Cal Warner watched them carefully as she had to admit she was a little concerned about this tour, as it went into places she had never been and seeing Issei get familiar with the fallen like Azazel and Shemhazai who actually seemed to enjoy his company. He's nothing like I've been told to expect, she thought as she had heard stories about the sacred gear users, almost all the previous Longinus users being well known and even recorded in certain cases, but the red dragon users had been mostly said to be bloodthirsty warmongers always craving battle with little variation with the white dragon users. She was brought out of her thoughts when she heard a collison. Flashback end. Guess I was really short-sighted then, Cal Warner said to herself as she now knew what her leader saw in Issei and it was clear as day what he was and what he represented, hope. Later at school. You know I joined her because I chose to, Issei said to Sauna Shirtorai or as devils and he knew her Sona Citri. Is the fake name cause of your sister? He asked with a chuckle seeing her shudder as the Magi Girl show had her sister under Seraphal, Citri and not Leviathan. Sona blushed fiercely and Rias chuckled upon hearing that. Hard to believe a wrongfully excommunicated family joined the devils even after your family was accused of black magic and the like, Sona said to him simply. Oh God, Issei said to himself, listen, I joined for my own reasons, one of them being I wanted to, and two, she has potential, he said looking at Rias who had a look of surprise. I've met many people from many factions, she may be inexperienced and a pain but underneath she's a good person, he said getting a mix between a dirty look and an appreciative one. Rias, tell me you're a MSTR strategist, Sona said as she changed the subject to something that she favored and liked to talk about. Yeah, told her all the ins and outs of her peerage for fighting and combat. What, want me to do the same for you? Issei asked with a small smirk. If you wouldn't mind, Sona said, both wanting another perspective and see what he was capable of. Your peerage is mostly humans but each of them has a sacred gear while your queen and pawn of 4 do, the others are artificial and your team specializes in magic and not combat except for Saji, Issei said to her. Told you he was good, Rias said seeing Sona had a slightly impressed look. But it's clear you're pawn and you don't know jack about the sacred gear he has, Issei said to her making her look at him critically. And what do I not know? Sona said to him neutrally. Well, it's called the absorption line, yet all he seems to think is that it's a tether, Issei said as Sona's eyes widened from that fact. Vritra has many gears but that one is any easy spot he should be able to find out more about later, he said to her as he walked away. Now I'm jealous, Sona said as he had brains and brawn. Jealous enough to ask him to a chess match, Rias said teasingly and was surprised by the answer she got. Maybe, Sona said to her best friend. Later that day. How's training your sister? Issei asked Kuroka. It's going as well as expected, Kuroka said as she talked to Issei, as since he used her as a comparison she was able to find out he was right on the money, as even though her sister could only handle so much senjutsu she seemed to be getting healthier, as she seemed to slowly regain her cat-like instincts. How goes it? Issei asked, seeing Lenore and Carmilla walk by. Ghastly, I never knew vampire magic was so dreadfully boring, Carmilla said as she was learning alongside Lenore when she wasn't training her in combat. She's just mad she's not getting the hook of it yet, Lenore said as she had an aptitude for magic which she found out years ago when Cypher was still around and only recently began to learn more about her heritage magic. Carmilla rolled her eyes at that remark. Next day. You know, for an angel you are not very stealthy, Issei said walking to school as he stopped where he was and smiled as he saw who came out around the corner. Flashback. Rainier, Cal Warner said as she saw who Issei crashed into. Cal Warner, who the hell is this? Rainier asked as she got up. A guest of Lord Azazel, Cal Warner said, seeing her fellow fallen tense. Great, she thought, as Rainier was deeply obsessed with their leader. Oh, I am so sorry, Rainier said, dusting him off. Hello, I am Rainier, a pleasure, she said kindly. Kiss, but, Cal Warner thought, rolling her eyes. Hi, name's Issei Belmont, Issei said to her. Rainier's eyes widened in surprise as she knew the name Belmont well. Oh, you must be being brought into our ranks. Welcome, she said, as the Belmonts were like other excommunicated members of the church and screwed over worse even by human and fallen angel standards. This piece of SHT isn't joining our ranks, he's just a plaything for Azazel, a prideful and arrogant voice said as everyone tensed up, feeling a strong presence. Kokabeel, Cal Warner said, tensed up as he was a leader-class fallen angel and often started random bouts even with other fallen. So this is the Red Dragon Emperor, Kokabeel said, looking down at Issei. Issei moved out of the way quickly and clutched his head, holding a wound he now had. Everyone looked at a light spear that was embedded into the wall. He dodged it. Rainier and Cal Warner thought in shock and was surprised by the damage he had received, as Kokabeel's light spears were powerful and unstable, much like Kokabeel himself, so a scratch was flesh wound. What's your problem? Issei asked him heatedly. I want to see some action, boy, let's see what you can do, Kokabeel said, throwing another spear. Boost transfer. Issei transferred the power to his eyes and his legs and dodged the spear. Yes, keep boosting, Kokabeel said, grabbing a spear as he swung it at Issei. What the F is this guy's problem? Lenore asked the fallen angels. Kokabeel is an angel that craves battle. It was the reason he fell, though it's unclear if it was for lust for battle or wrath, as he loved killing, Cal Warner said to them. Don't get involved, Rainier said nervously, as Kokabeel always terrified her. She's right, Kuroka said, shaking like a cat, and her hair seemed on end looking at Kokabeel. They all watches in horror as despite Issei's boosting and transfers he was pinned with Issei on the floor and Kokabeel's foot on his chest. Tell me, boy, what does it feel like to witness my raw power? Kokabeel said with a smirk as he pressed his foot harder. Come now, I want to hear your screams, he said, stomping his foot, an audible crack being heard coming from Issei. Lord Kokabeel, please stop, Rainier said loudly and quickly. And why should I beach? Kokabeel asked in an amused tone, but everyone could see he was bloodthirsty. Because he is a guest of Lord Azazel. I am sure he would not like such harm coming to him, Rainier said, and her BLD went cold when he glared at her. Azazel, that fool, Kokabeel said, unknowingly pressing his foot harder into Issei yet to make the boy scream, but BLD did come out his mouth. I've had enough of the peanut gallery, time to turn you all to ash, he said, creating a rather large light spear. Issei watched in horror as he knew what the power could do to them. Boost, 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 his sacred gear, said the limiter, not even acting as Issei was increasing his power quickly. What? Kokabeel thought, knowing for a fact the boosted gear had a limiter for boosts in a amount of time. Issei roared as he pushed Kokabeel's foot off him, making him back up with his light spear. Finally, something interesting. Let's see if you can handle this, boy, Kokabeel said, tossing his spear at the group. Everyone watch Issei get up and hold up his sacred gear and collided it with the spear, the powers colliding, and soon after a few minutes the spear faded away after the clash. He exhausted the energy from the spear, Rainier thought as Issei stood his ground with the attack cancelling out its power with his own. Please Lord Kokabeel, that is enough, she said loudly. Enough from you, Kokabeel said, throwing a spear at Rainier. Rainier was frozen as the spear came right for her and knew that moment she'd die the moment it came into contact, but it never came as Issei took the blow for her right in his heart. Issei, Lenore and Kuroka said in shock and fear seeing him fall back. Pathetic, Kokabeel said before he was sent flying back. Azazel, he said, seeing the leader having a not-too-pleased look on his face. We'll talk later, Azazel said in a not-so-pleased tone with a matching look. He saved me, Rainier said in total shock as no one had done that for her ever. They all huddled around him and saw the boosted gear shine brightly for a moment after Issei momentarily spoke to Drake. So that's it, I hope you know what you're doing, kid, Azazel thought, very aware of the sacrifice and what it'd entail. Flashback end. Hey hero boy, Rainier said teasingly. Hey feather girl, Issei said as he picked up her black feather, making her blush and pout. I swear fallen angels always leave so many feathers, it's a surprise. I haven't made pillows yet, he said with a smile. Haha, Rainier said as it was basically a fallen signature to leave feathers. What's up, Issei asked her curiously. The group I'm with plans to attack you at some point. Donasek and Middle know you're here and they don't think me and Cal Warner know you're here, Rainier said to him. What about the sacred gear user? Issei asked, only for Rainier to look to her side and for Issei to look and see a petite blonde girl. Hello, nice to meet you, my name is Asia Argento, Asia said politely. Is she a dragon tamer? Issei thought to himself as he felt a connection to her, as dragon tamers were a rare breed as they connected to dragons on a deep level emotionally and spiritually. They could even call upon dragons knowingly or not. They'll be coming for her. I intercepted her earlier, Rainier said to him, as this girl was too sweet to kill. Issei nodded. 1 hour later. So I guess you're mad, huh? Issei said with a smirk as he had a red cheek as Rias smacked him across his face. Are you insane aligning yourself with the fallen? Rias said to him with a serious look. Listen, this is a serious problem and it's not just because I have ties with the fallen. Don't you think it's weird they picked here as a location? Issei asked her simply. Rias raised a brow at that question. Issei summoned his sacred gear. They'd want to go after us, the sacred gear users, me, Kiba, Tsubaki, and Saji, he said to her. Rias' eyes widened in surprise as if that was true they were in danger and merely running the clock. I'll discuss this with Sona today, but I need you to refrain from contacting the fallen, she said to him. Azazel said they are basically liaisons from the fallen angels to devils, so it's okay, Issei said to her. Wait, you know the general of the fallen angels? Rias said in shock. CRP, Issei thought to himself. I'm gonna kill Surzex, he thought to himself. Few hours later. Well, this is awkward, Carmilla said to no one in particular as they were at the dinner table. They being Issei, Lenore, Kuroka, Carmilla, Asia, Rias, Rainier, and Cal Warner. Yeah, real funny, the former now innocent convict, a hybrid, 2 ancient vampires, 2 fallen, an excommunicated nun that so pure angels should go blind, and a princess devil, Kuroka said with a sarcastic tone. Could be worse, Issei said as he served everyone. I must say, Issei, this is delicious, Rias said as she ate her food. Would you mind filling me in on the rogue fallen now? She said, looking at the fallen angels. Sure, princess, Rainier said as sparks flew between their glares. Oh my lord, Cal Warner said to herself, the fallen serve Kokabeel. He is trying to make an attempt on restarting the war. We don't know what he's made a call to arms with certain people that follow his goals, offering them a boon, and that boon is sacred gears. This sacrifice, she said motioning to Asia, is to show his forces he can offer them power and that the war would be with them, she said to her simply. Rias had to admit offering sacred gear to people was a good way to get attention and loyal followers, as power was something many craved. What do you intend to do with Asia? She asked them curiously. Well, she's excommunicated, meaning she's free game for the fallen and devils, Issei said as he ate. You'd make a remarkable bishop, Asia, Rias said with a smile. No way, Beach, we call dibs, Rainier said to her. Excuse me, but I think you forget this is my territory, Rias said to her. And both of you forget this is my DMN castle, Issei said to them. You wanna fight, go outside, he said to them, putting an end to the fighting. Asia can make her choice later, it's her right to decide, he said to them. You're right, Issei, as always, Rainier said with a smile. She should see how amazing the fallen are before saying no to the devil beach, she said with a smile. And she should see how civil we devils are to you class-less fallen angels, Rias said to her. Got any more of that? Cal Warner asked Carmilla as she was low on wine, having constantly taken sips from it to get through listening to Rias and Rainier bicker. Say what you will, our lives never stop being entertaining, Issei said to them. Few days later. I swear this guy total creep, Issei thought as Cal Warner and Rainier were on point calling Frida a stalker, creepy cannibal, foul mouth RPST moron, as the man stalked him on occasion as if eyeing him up for the fight or whatever was going through his sick mind. He was approaching the church with Kiba by side. I can't believe this is your plan, Kiba said with a smirk. Hey, you don't like it, speak up, Issei asked him curiously. Never said I didn't like it, Kiba said with a smile as he was gunning for Freed, as apparently Freed wanted his sacred gear from what the Fallen told them, and that made Kiba want to show him his sacred gear up close. Hey, can I ask about Akino? She seemed to tense up when Rainier and Cal Warner were near, Issei asked him curiously. No idea, Kiba said as Akino disliked the Fallen as he disliked the church, so he stopped there. Hey, can I ask you for some advice? He asked Issei. Wear guards, Issei said to him. What? Kiba asked confused. You were gonna ask me for more tips on training, right? Issei said, getting a nod. Well, you seem the more flexible kinda knight but still lack any armor. Wear things like shin and arm guards, maybe some pads. It won't slow you down much if at all, but it will offer some protection, he said, as the only knightly thing about Kiba were his looks, personality, morals, and his wordsmanship. Kiba took a moment to consider that, as he never had actual armor, and the safety gear Issei mentioned seemed like a good middle ground, as he wouldn't lose speed and have some protection. How's training anyway? Issei asked, as from all the girls around the track he noticed Kiba doing laps there daily whenever he wasn't doing contracts. Kiba had to admit Issei's tip was a good one, as he had gotten a little faster and built up some stamina, but not as much strength as he liked to admit. Wear body weights when training, Issei said as Kiba told him his thoughts. Adds muscle training to your activities and makes them a bit more difficult, he said to him. Kiba nodded his head in appreciation as they arrived. With Rias. Why did I agree to go with you? Rias said as she wondered how Issei talked her into going with Rainier. Issei is smarter than you, and he said you should fight with someone else as you are too in tune with Akino, that it's basically all about power, Rainier said to her. Rias just mumbled a bit before they were surrounded. Finally something to take my anger out on, she said, charging up her power. With Akino. You know lightning is better than thunder magic, Cal Warner said to Akino, receiving an intense glare which didn't faze her. Does he know? Akino asked her heatedly. Do you mean Issei about your hybrid status, or do you mean father? Cal Warner asked her simply in a neutral tone. Neither. Your father knows you are with the Gremories, but that's it, no current location or anything, and Issei knows nothing, she said to her, seeing Akino calm down. He won't think less of you, she said to the fallen angel devil hybrid, and you shouldn't be afraid of what you can do. You are not your father, and the power you were born with is yours, not his. It is a gift, and you decide what to do with it, she said, as she knew little about Barkio's problems but knew about his daughter, as she could feel the likeness of their powers. Akino just glared at her, but there was a case of wonder in her eyes as a spark danced between her fingers. With Kuroka. You attack, I watch, Kuroka said as her sister needed a more active battle with Senjutsu. Kaneko nodded as she focused. Kuroka smiled as their sisterly bond was slowly recovering, as she still felt bad for not coming to her sooner, but with her wanted status any interaction may have harmed her negatively. Kaneko ran forward, assaulting exorcists, dodging swords and bullets. Kuroka was pleased as Kaneko was using her senjutsu much better and more instinctively, which was how it was supposed to be, as yokai like them lived and grew with senjutsu, their skills developing naturally. Kaneko's eyes were cat-like, moving at incredible speeds as she knocked down each of her targets. Senjutsu makes people crazy, my butt, Kuroka thought, as she still couldn't believe that the devils picked that as a reason for her going insane, as it was an insult to the yokai, those of who used senjutsu. With Issei. Hard to believe, Issei said, looking at the cross integrated with technology. Azazel seriously needs a lock on his SHT if Kokabeel can find some way to work his stuff, he said to himself. 1 hour later. Overall I'd say not bad, Issei said to them. Rias fought using different magics. Congrats, Kiba won his fight but the moron ran away. Kaneko is getting better. Akino heard you did a little hand-to-hand with your thunder and from the ground, he said, sending all of them his approval of their slight improvement. I must say it was interesting to deliver pain in a new way, Akino said with a smile and small blush as her rook-like punches infused with thunder magic certain made the screams louder. And just like that I created a monster, Issei said as everyone chuckled at that. 2 weeks later. 50 contracts. What do you do, man? Kiba asked as they tallied results of contracts, and Issei had 30 the previous weeks and now 50. He wondered what Issei's secret was. Some of my contracts are people asking for advice or just hanging out, and to be honest my contracts actually work in with others. A lot of them are anime fans so I can group them and they call me to hang out. Hell, sometimes they do a group thing themselves and I get multiple contracts for one job, Issei said as he actually had some of Kaneko's contracts, as most of her contracts revolved around cosplay anime fans and she usually got overflowed with requests, so it worked out in the end. DMN, that's genius, Kiba said as a lot of his clients varied but some of his regulars had similar requests. He wondered if he could group them in. Few days later. Hey Sona, Issei said as he sat on the couch reading a book. Before Sona could greet him, her pawn answered. Hey, don't go off talking to the student council president so casually, Saji said to him. Issei sent Sona a look and an amused smile. And you are, he said, feigning ignorance. Sona's pawn. I took 4 pawn pieces. What about you, pretty boy? Saji said as this guy was like Kiba, in his opinion. 8 pawns, Issei said to him simply. I'd be careful, Vritra user, he said, summoning his sacred gear. Challenging a dragon is never a good idea, he said, letting out a little of his aura. Seeing Saji tense up. He's right, Saji, don't make challenges without having all the information, Sona said as he spout out a challenge without knowing who or how powerful his opponent was. Hey Sona, Rias said as she saw her childhood friend. I hear you intend to go to the familiar forest, Sona said to her simply. Issei watched the conversation and rolled his eyes, seeing the competitive glimmer in both women's eyes. Can't we just take Saji with us? He asked them curiously. Me and Asia need familiars and Saji just needs his. We're a smaller group, so why not, he said to them. Asia became a devil, Sona asked in surprise as she was human as of yesterday. She made a decision after Rias and Rainier kept duking it out like idiots, Issei said, getting a glare. Tell me I'm wrong and you are still repairing those holes you two made, he said to her, seeing her blush in embarrassment. That makes sense. What made her pick devil? Sona asked as Asia could have picked the fallen side and she wondered what made Asia's choice sway to the devil's side. Yes, Issei, tell her why Asia picked devils, Rias said with a smug grin on her face. She wanted to be with and help me, Issei said with a small blush. Anyway, can we just take Saji? He asked her curiously. I would like some compensation, Sona said with a challenging smirk. Perhaps a game of chess, she said with a smirk. Alright, Rias said as she thought Sona meant her. I meant Issei. Rias, Sona said as she wanted to see his skill on the board. Issei shrugged despite the looks he got. Everyone watched in interest as they began to play, both moving at incredible speeds as they moved their pieces. Draw, both of them said as that was the end result. Rias looked shocked as that was as close to a win as anyone had ever gotten with Sona. Sona was also surprised by this as she respected Issei a lot more as he just proved to be her equal with this draw. Have fun at the familiar forest, Sona said, leaving with a smile which shocked her peerage. The hell just happened? Saji said with a confused look as he wasn't a devil long and unlike the other girls didn't know what the draw was or would have meant. Few hours later. Issei smiled at the little blue dragon that was now Asia's familiar and saw how it reacted to her and him. The blue dragon shot at him and nothing happened to Issei, and in turn he sent a small amount of flames which the small dragon purred to. There are many creatures here, he thought, as some seemed similar to many of the other species. But he focused on the dragon using some of his dragon aura to feel out other dragon and dragon-like creatures. Issei felt a twitch as his aura picked up on something, and to his dismay what he picked up on also felt him. "I'll be back," he said to the others. Asia watched as Rias seemed to in fear. "Why is my body on edge?" Saji said as his sacred gear materialized. Rias was concerned but looked at the dragon. Asia had wondered what scared a dragon, as it didn't fear Issei even with the small amount of his draconic aura he let out, and Saji's sacred gear being a dragon type made her have one conclusion: another dragon, she said to herself. With Issei. "Issei, you need to leave immediately, as in right now. Go," Drake said, the jewel materializing on the back of his left palm. "Drake, what am I feeling?" Issei asked him, as this power was one he never felt before, but he was sure Drake had, as he could feel his boosted gear react to the power. "Listen partner, I have made a lot of decisions in my life, some of which I don't remember, but I think this was a bad one," Drake said, as he didn't know why, but he felt like he really f up with this one. "What could you have possibly done?" Issei asked him curiously, not getting a response but a boost instead. If Drake is on edge, he thought, charging himself up, and entered balance breaker. He soon entered a cave, the source of where he felt the power. "Drake," a feminine but loud voice said. "Tiamat," Drake said in remembrance. "The Dragon Queen," Issei said in surprise. At the out of the 5 Dragon Kings she was the only female. Tiamat chuckled at that. "Smart boy, I may grant you a swift death for being smart, unlike Drake's previous hosts," she said to him. "Excuse me one moment," Issei said, looking at his arm. "The F did you do?" he asked Drake in anger. "I don't remember," Drake said flatly. A loud growl came from Tiamat hearing that. "Drake, I want you to know I am going to murder you if I survive this," Issei said as he kept boosting. "Boy, I apologize for your demise if it makes any difference. You can curse that DMN fool in your arm," Tiamat said as she stepped out the cage, showing Issei a navy blue dragon. Issei roared, sending a torrent of flames the minute she did the same. "Not bad, hatchling, this may be a challenge," Tiamat said with a smirk. "Let's take this outside," Issei said, flying out the cave, Tiamat breaking through the cave. The others saw this and saw the dragons fly to the sky. "Oh my word," the familiar MSTR said in fear. "Can you tell me anything about her?" Issei asked Drake, dodging blasts. "Okay, I remember she was weaker than me," Drake said, Tiamat clearly hearing him as she roared in anger. "Anything useful?" Issei said in distress, firing multiple dragon shots. "I got nothing," Drake said to him as he remembered Jack about why she hated him. "F this," Issei said as he stood his ground as he flew directly charging at Tiamat. Transfer. Tiamat was surprised as she was caught off guard as Issei moved at blinding speed and hit her dead in the stomach, sending her back, her wings stopping as they fell. "He chose to disable me, transferring his power to his thrusters using his own body as a battering ram," she thought as he didn't have enough time to boost to her level of strength, but he was combating her in different ways to stop her. Both of them crashed into the forest near the lake. Tiamat got up and looked around. "You can run all you want, boy, I like a good hunt," she said as this fight had become about skill now. The others got as high up as they could to watch the battle. "Tiamat is stronger than Tannen," Rias thought, knowing about the blaze meteor dragon, and knew that Issei, while stronger than her, was still ways to go before he could fight Tannen, let alone Tiamat. "Where is Issei?" Saji said, not able to spot red armor or a green or fiery glow. Asia looked around and looked toward the lake, somehow knowing Issei was there, and Tiamat did as well as she was heading in that direction. With Issei. Issei was deep underwater in the lake, boosting his power as much as he could. "No enemy I have ever fought has ever been like that," he thought to himself as he was on even terms with Valley, which was impressive as Valley thought he was equal to or stronger than Kokobile, but he wouldn't fight Azazel, something he could agree with. "Partner, you need to ready yourself," Drake said to him. "A little information would be useful," Issei thought to himself. "I boosted enough," he thought as he had transferred enough to various parts of his armor, focusing on the jets, gauntlets, and the chest armor. He looked up and saw Tiamat's head and knew he had minutes if not seconds before she discovered him. With Tiamat. Not a bad strategy hiding his scent here, Tiamat thought, as the lake was filled with various things, but where she thought as her eye caught a red and green glow under the lake, much more impressive, she thought, as hiding in the lake as long as he did was genius and gutsy, as she couldn't track his scent and he had to have much control to hold his breath. She was surprised seeing a red light, assuming it was Issei, but was surprised as she got hit by a dragon shot and a second follow-through shot. Now Issei thought his jet in overdrive as he flew up, hitting Tiamat for a third strike. "Take this," he said as he whipped out Morning Star and tied it around her mouth, muzzling her, stopping her from using breath attacks, and made it on her back. "Bstrd," Tiamat thought to herself. "Now heal," Issei said, taking out his WHP and wrapped it around her snout and pulled her down to the ground, but there was a clash as both tried to overpower the other. "Boost, boost, boost. I ain't backing down," Issei said as he pulled her back, raising her high up in the air before running through the forest, slamming her against the trees until he slammed her against the mountain. "Reset. CRP," Issei said in exhaustion as he pushed the boosted gear by a lot today, and as he took a breather he was struck by Tiamat's tail. "Impressive red dragon," Tiamat said, removing the chain. "You have much power for a young dragon," she said with a chuckle. "Are you going to kill me?" Issei asked her curiously. Tiamat looked at him, still seeing that look of defiance on his face, knowing that he'd fight tooth and nail to live. "No, you fought with honor and resolve and are clearly worthy," she said to him. "I especially don't go after my own," she said to him with a smile. "So you know?" Issei asked in surprise. "That besides being part vampire, devil, and human you are part dragon?" "Yes, I know the BLD of my kin." "What part did you trade?" Tiamat asked him, knowing about Drake's power. "My heart," Issei said with a smile of pride. Tiamat was a bit taken back by that statement and the look he had. "For what purpose did you trade it?" she asked, wondering the reason. "I was gonna die and wanted to protect my friends," Issei said, as after his bout with Kokabeel all those years ago, he traded his heart as he wanted to give up the most important piece of himself, as that was how much his friends meant, and in result dragon was added to his DNA. Tiamat just stared at the young man/dragon. "Why have you come here?" she asked him, curious to his purpose here. "I wanted a familiar," Issei said to her. "And you chose me," Tiamat said in amusement, as that was a bold choice. "I was aiming for a dragon, and when I felt you I wanted to aim for the best," Issei said with a chuckle, and was surprised Tiamat let out a full-blown laugh, which he joined her in. "What is your name, child?" Tiamat asked him curiously. "Issei Belmont," Issei said to her. "Well, Issei, I have decided to become your familiar and to teach you the ways of the dragon, as you are quite skilled with your weapons and boosted gear traits, but I see Drake failed to train you to be a proper dragon," Tiamat said, basically daring Drake to disagree. Issei had to admit learning from a living dragon would help his wheelhouse, as dragons were the strongest creatures and his strength may have been above his king's, but he was still weak compared to the likes of Azazel and Surzex. Even with all the power he used today he's barely be able to survive, and Tiamat was going easy on him. Issei said the chant, and soon Tiamat was now his familiar, which shocked and scared his companions to no end. 1 hour later. "Holy SHT," Camilla said as she was told that the woman before her was said to be a dragon queen even stronger than Issei himself. They were in the castle/mansion. "Yes, I am Tiamat the Dragon Queen. Pleasure," Tiamat said in a human form, as she had long navy blue hair that reached her back, a nice well-sculpted face, hourglass figure, large K-cup melons, and a bountiful and supple round peach. "Can I ask how strong Issei is compared to you?" Lenore asked curiously. Tiamat took a moment to think about that as she recalled their fight. "Issei is smart, tactical, and strong for his age. If I had to guess where that'd put him, I'd say 20% of my power at his maximum," she said, as that was honestly impressive, as she was the middle dragon, weaker than Fafnir and Yulong but stronger than Vritra and Midgardsorm. "Can Issei be made stronger with your BLD?" Asia asked innocently to the dragon. "Possibly, as it may activate some dormant power in him," Tiamat said, as she was certain dragon BLD may boost him by a certain amount. "Ugh, that may be a last resort," Issei said to her, now gaining a curious look from Tiamat, who was inches from his face in a blink. Tiamat cut her finger and jammed it in Issei's mouth, and feeling his power rise she felt something else. "Is he?" she thought in surprise. Few days later. "I don't who you are, but let me make something." Clear your bird is pissing me off. If you are gonna stalk us, do a better job, Issei said as he had an exotic-looking bird by the neck. The bird squawked before disappearing in a flaming magic circle. It's a technique one can do through the eyes of a familiar, Tiamat said as she knew most of the magics that bound masters and familiars living in the forest and all. Issei said as he talked to Sona about it tomorrow, as he did tell Rias about being watched, and all she said was that she had a feeling. Later that night, Issei was relaxing in his bed and soon felt a familiar magic signature. Thank everything unholy that Kuroka and Lenore are busy, he thought, as the women always got into a cat or bat fight depending on who asked whenever they slept in his room. Rias, what's up? He asked, and then noticed she had a serious look. You okay? He asked curiously. Issei, I need you to take my virginity, Rias said to him pleadingly. No, Issei said flatly. What? Rias said as she wondered why he said no, as Kuroka and Lenore shamelessly raved about his SXL prowess and Carmilla went into vivid detail. Why? She asked, wondering if he didn't find her attractive or something else. You're my friend and you're afraid, Issei said as he hugged her close. Rias blushed in relief, happiness, and comfort as she eased into the hug. Wanna talk about it? Issei asked her calmly. Is it okay if we stay like this for a moment? Rias said, her voice sounding fragile. Issei was silent and comforted her. Few minutes later. Grafia, Rias said, feeling her sister-in-law enter. Hello Lady Rias, Lord Issei, Grafia said to them. Issei rolled his eyes as he liked the maid as he ran into after his initial meeting with Surzex about Kuroka. Can you tell me what this is about? As being stalked by a DMN bird, Rias breaking down in my arms, and you showing up, he asked her curiously. A bird, Grafia said, tilting her head curiously. Issei grabbed a nearby piece of paper and drew it and even colored it for Grafia. I think it's a familiar since owners can look through their familiar's eyes, he said to her, and took another piece of paper. I caught it today and it burst into flames with this symbol, he said, doing a rough sketch as he saw it for a brief second. I must say you are a talented artist, Grafia said, as these were great sketches. That's the Phoenix clan symbol, Grafia, Rias said, as her sister knew what these meant. Yes, we'll discuss more of this tomorrow, Grafia said as a magic circle came down on her and Rias. Thanks for nothing, Issei said to the spot where they left. Next day. An engagement? Issei asked curiously. Yes, Rias was engaged to Riser Phoenix quite some time ago. My parents did the same with me, but I was able to limit my options to a person who could beat me in chess, Sona said to him. I gotta draw. What's that make me? Issei asked with a chuckle. Potential, Sona said with a grin, but all jokes aside, they'll likely have a rating game to end this matter, she said to him. I've heard of those. I'm assuming we're at a disadvantage because Rias hasn't had one and Riser, I'm guessing, has? Issei asked her curiously. Yes, he has 8 wins and 2 loses, Sona said as she then explained those loses. Can I ask for some favors? They may help Rias if she does fight this jackass, Issei asked her, getting a nod. I need footage of his past matches, he asked as she gave an immediate nod, as that was a simple request he gathered, and if this does turn out to be a rating game, he said, moving in closer, making her eyes go wide when she heard his request. I understand what you are asking, but why? Sona asked as she wondered what he meant when he asked what he did. Trust me, it'll be a surprise, Issei said to her with a smirk. Both tensed, feeling a sudden appearance in the school. Few minutes. You wanna lose that hand, bird? Issei said, walking in, seeing Riser try and grab Rias inappropriately. And who are you, commoner? Riser asked uncaringly and superiorly. Issei Belmont, last son of House Belmont, descendant of Vlad Dracula Teeps, magician of the Traveler bloodline, and this generation's Red Dragon Emperor, Grafia said to Riser. I would think you'd know who he is, Riser, after all your familiar has been watching Rias and her peerage for some time, she said, shocking the rest of Rias' peerage, not counting Issei and Rias. Riser was merely checking in on his soon-to-be bride, Riser said to her. Why was it following me then? Issei said, but calmed himself as Grafia sent him a subtle look to calm himself. Riser was merely wondering what urchin his bride took in, Riser said arrogantly. Few minutes later. Issei sent a couch flying as he was enraged. Should we stop him? Aquino asked Rias as both had their eyes glued on him as he had his mini rampage. Well, at least he's doing what I wished I could do, Rias said to her best friend. 10 days we are training. I will put you all to the DMN grindstone. I will have Tiamat destroy my body so I can be rebuilt. We are killing him, Issei said in frustration. Oh la la, Aquino said as she blushed at that thought. I have a place where we can train, Rias said, willing to leave right after school. We're going. I need to grab some supplies first though, Issei said to her. Next day. Kaneko, you are with Kuroka. You're gonna MSTR Senjutsu if it kills you. Kiba, you've built up some stamina and a little strength and your speed had increased, but that ain't enough. We need more. We're gonna push you. Asia, you are our counter for the Phoenix Tears, he said as Asia was a non-combative but her healing could help them if they were in a bind. Aquino, the queen fights how you fight sky distance tactics, and Rias, you and me are gonna go over strategies tonight watching the matches Riser fought in, he said to her with a grin. Tiamat was impressed by Issei's skills in recognizing weaknesses but not his own. Issei, I think it's time your weaknesses were addressed, she said to him. Everyone paid close attention as they had seen Issei fight and pick them apart. They wondered how it'd be for him. Your speed is like that of a knight. Your characteristics make you durable like a rook, your knowledge of magic makes you as valuable as a bishop, Tiamat said, highlighting his skills. You are proficient with your sacred gear as well as Kiba is, she said as they were at a good enough level right now, but you have yet to fully realize who you are, she said to him. You focus on the sum of what you are made of. You have barely tapped into your draconic side unless it involves your sacred gear. There is much more to you, Issei, she said as Issei may have been a strong opponent but he had yet to fully realize everything about himself. Everyone was surprised by that as they didn't think they'd see Issei picked apart like that and was surprised when he merely nodded. Later that day. Ugh, this is terrible, Rias said to Issei as she hated Riser's voice even on TV. What are you writing? She asked him curiously as they were rewatching the fights. I think I noticed something, Issei said to her as they watched closely when Riser fought his opponents himself. Issei and Rias watched closely when Riser fought. You have a stopwatch? Issei asked her curiously as he watched the time and digitally recorded a certain element about the fight. 9 days later. Yo, you expecting to have a snack? Kaneko asked Issei, seeing him pack some vials of BLD with some names on them. Not exactly, Issei said with a chuckle. BLD is actually a legal substance in a raiding game for vampires, Kiba said as there were a few vampires and it fell under the category of weapon instead of magical item like Phoenix Tears. Which we should be abusing. Why are you not taking more? Rias asked, wanting to hedge her bet. 'Cause I know what I am doing, Issei said to her with a calming smile. Private booth. Carmilla and Lenore were bored as they waited for the match to begin while Kuroka was having fun messing with the devils as they still feared her and thought she was crazy. Hello Graphia, Carmilla said, greeting the woman as she gave them the summoning seal to get here. Greetings, Graphia said as bowed lightly. Surzex, Kuroka said in an even tone as she had to admit despite not liking the upper-class devils he was alright and saved her sister. Greetings. Any opinion on the match today? Surzex asked them, wondering their opinion on the matter, liking to have the inside track. Issei will win, Tiamat said, making her presence known to the king. This peon is nothing compared to the dragon, she said as she had fought him herself and trained him, making him tap more into his dragon and often insulted Drake along the way. Surzex nodded and held certain questions off for later. Carmilla ordered some more wine and took out a flask of Issei's BLD she had handy and dropped it, seeing someone walk in. Holy FSHT, she said in shock. Tiamat was on slight alert as she saw who entered. Kuroka felt every hair on her body stand on end as her senjutsu was telling her to run away as fast as possible. Lenore looked and was in shock like Carmilla by who she saw. Vivlad D. Dracula Teeps, she said, seeing his picture in the castle, Issei not having the heart to take it down. Hello everyone, Dracula said with a smile, taking a bow. Holy F, Carmilla says, seeing none other than Dracula F. Teeps walk into her outburst, catching his attention. Ah, Carmilla, how interesting to see you again, Dracula says. Carmela looks down at her flask of Issei's BLD. Issei, you had better not spike my flask of your BLD again, or so help me I will ride you PP until it snaps the F off, then have Lenore reattach it using magic and then ride it until it breaks off again, she said to Issei, knowing he'd feel her fury. Funny you try to kill me then fall for my descendant, Dracula said to her. How the F are you alive? You were F ashes, Carmilla said as Alucard showed her his old room where Dracula had died and had even given Issei his father's ring. Well, it's due to this rather dreadfully boring story involving my killers, an alchemist, and death itself, Dracula says lazily with a wave of his hand causing several people to have deadpan expressions. Vlad, please calm down, a female voice said, catching everyone's attention. You've got to be bloody kidding me, Carmilla said, seeing the woman who walked in. Lisa F. Teeps, Carmilla said in shock, seeing the human now clearly vampire. Excuse me, but I'd like to know your reason for coming here, Surzex asked him sternly. 2 reasons, Dracula said to him, simply holding up his fingers. F it, I am nowhere near drunk enough to think about you being back. I take it you are here to see Issei turn the Phoenix brat into KFC, she says. Yes, that is one of the reasons, while also wanting to meet my descendant. It's also rather amusing that you would use that specific analogy to describe the situation, Dracula says. Carmilla raises an eyebrow hearing this before she looks at Dracula's face, causing her eyes to widen before she suddenly starts laughing her butt off. OF hell, the Count is now a colonel, she says, nearly falling out of her seat, causing the others to look at him before their own eyes widen as they get the joke. Dracula sighs tiredly at this. You see, my love, this is why I wanted you to be the face for that while I would be the one for the coffee venture, he says, getting a chuckle from Lisa. With Issei. Issei didn't understand why, but the vampire part of him felt like it was clawing up his insides needing BLD, and thankfully the match had started that moment. Rias watched Issei dash out the room, Kiba hot on his tail. Rias, Asia asked her, getting her attention. What is the plan? She asked curiously. Rias smiled at the innocent question. With Kiba. Are you okay? Kiba asked Issei as he took out a vial of BLD. Yeah, Issei said, wondering what was wrong with him. He drank the vial of BLD in his hand and dropped it to the ground, and soon Issei was climbing up trees with great skill and flexibility. Kiba saw the vial and picked it up and saw the vial was tagged, Kuroka Tojo, he said, feeling like he was missing something. With Kaneko. Kaneko was at the gym waiting for the arrival of Riser's pieces, sensing them coming, but her eyes widened as her senses were flooded by a familiar power. With Kuroka. It's begun, Kuroka said with a smile, getting some curious looks from the others. With Rias. Issei possesses an incredible ability thanks to his vampire heritage, Rias said to the former nun. He calls it BLD adaptation. His body naturally gets in tune with whatever BLD he consumes, gaining some of the abilities from whomever he drinks, she said to him. Is it permanent? Asia asked curiously. No, but he can learn something, Rias said, as Issei had drank Kuroka's BLD in the past and had not kept her feline-like qualities and flexibility, but he did get a grasp on sage arts, which was increased whenever he drank her BLD, or any yokai for that matter. 3 of Riser's pawns have been retired, Graphia said over the comms. Rias smiled hearing that. With Kaneko. Kaneko smiled hearing the announcement. Time to up the ante, she thought as she got on all fours. We know you're here, Shuilan said, calling out to Kaneko. Kaneko acted in that moment, dashing like a cat out of hell, using her rook strength in par with her cat-like speed. She charged head first to the pawns using her twin tails and grabbed the twins, breaking their chainsaws, throwing them to the staff-wielding pawn, and finished them off with a single blow. 3 of Riser's pawns are retired, Graphia said again. Later Street Fighter, Kaneko said as she blasted Shuilan before kicking her into the wall and did a finishing blow. Riser's rook is retired, Graphia said to players. Bitchin, Kaneko said with a small smile. With Aquino. Aquino had to admit moving through the trees wasn't bad, as she wasn't discovered and had actually found Eubeluna quite quickly. Issei was right, flying was a gamble, she said, as with Devil Night Vision she saw perfectly in the dark, and if she wore her priestess outfit she'd be discovered quite easily, even more so than Eubeluna as she wore dark colors. Flashback. Issei said you called, Cal Warner said to Aquino as they were on a mountain seeing some clouds, deciding if you'll use lightning I take it, she asked not getting a response, she made a light sphere and held it out to her, touch it, she said to her. Aquino raised a brow as there were so many jokes there, but she humoured her and felt it sting slightly even though it didn't cut her. Devils feel pain when touch it and it burns their skin. You can touch it as you are part fallen. Take respect in that, not hatred for your father. You can't hate a race because of one person or issue. Aquino, trust me, the factions had tried and even they realized it was idiocy, Cal Warner said to her. Aquino remained quiet. Cal Warner left as the clouds got heavier and she stood on the ground a good distance away waiting what seemed like an hour before hearing a loud boom and flash of thunder and lightning. Flashback end. With Cal Warner. About F-time, Rainier said as Issei had the feed hacked for them in the castle as the devils wouldn't much like their presence even as guests. Cal Warner smiled as Aquino finally found herself, be strong fallen. Devil, she thought with a smirk. With Azazel. Azazel smiled as he watched Aquino sending an audio file to a certain companion of his. Barkiel had completed another task for the Fallen and had gotten a message on his phone, hearing nothing till he heard something he'd never mistake in his life, the sound of holy lightning, and there was only one other person who could make that sound, and it brought a tear to his face. With Aquino. Aquino had made storm clouds around the sky and surrounded her body in lightning and ran the lightning, improving her speed as she jumped, aiming for the opponent's queen, punching her right in the face. With Kiba. 2 of Riser's pawns are retired, Grafia said. That's 9 pieces, Kiba thought, as all the pawns were gone plus the rook. With Issei. DMN it died, Issei said as his rush on the BLD he drank had finished. I should relax, he said to himself, still not knowing what was causing him to feel so restrained. With Dracula. He fights impressively, he's tactical, magical, and well gifted in combat, Dracula said as those were traits he respected in combatants, and this BLD ability you said he had fascinating, he said as he found it amazing how Issei could use a person's traits for his BLD, and his BLD seemed unique to those that drank it, as Carmilla said she was a day walker after drinking Issei's BLD. Wonder if that would have happened if I drank Alucard's BLD, he thought as when Alucard was still in his toddler stage and was learning about BLD drinking, he wondered if he could drink his son's BLD as he was a damper. Good luck trying to figure that one out, Lenore said as she knew what this man was and how smart he was, which made him dangerous. With Rias. Rias felt hope as her peerage and family were winning. Thank you, Issei, she said, not even sure she need to leave the artificial construct of her building, until she heard Grafia's voice. Rias queen retires, Grafia said over the comm. Few minutes earlier with Aquino. Aquino panted heavily as she may have had the surprise on Eubeluna. She still managed to parry her attacks after that, but still the enemy queen was on the ground, needing one good attack left to finish her. Any last words? She asked teasingly. Yes, Eubeluna said, glaring at her before glowing. Boom, she said as she sent her magic outward. With Issei. Issei's eyes became BLD red when he heard that Aquino had been retired. He took out 2 vials. This is for you, Aquino, he said, taking out 2 vials and walked toward where he heard the explosion. With Kaneko. How dare you, Kaneko said as she got enraged and started to furiously attack Eubeluna with her sage arts and demonic sage arts. With Kuroka. Always keep a level head, Chiron, Kuroka thought, as sage arts worked best when was aware and not blinded by certain things to distract them. With Kaneko. Kaneko took each and every explosion as she tried to attack Eubeluna. Foolish cat, Eubeluna said, sending a powerful explosion, sending Kaneko flying only to be caught by Issei. Finally a decent challenge, she said with a smirk. Rias, Issei said, calling out as she soon appeared with Asia giving Kaneko to them. Watch her, he said with a serious look as he downed the 2 vials in his hand before screaming. With Carmilla. Whose FBLD did he drink? Carmilla asked in surprise. Dracula had a thought on who, guessing on the company Issei kept. With Rias. Rias was glad Asia could heal 2 people at once as she healed Issei as he screamed. She picked up the vials he dropped and was surprised to see the names Aquino, Himejima, and Rainier. With Cal Warner. Have you officially lost your mind? He's a devil and a vampire. What in our father's name made you think it was a good idea to give a species that burns from anything holy? Cal Warner said in a rare moment of rage. He asked and thought it'd be a good weapon, Rainier said as she didn't see the harm when he asked, but hearing his screams made her reconsider. With Issei. You're lucky you're so many other species besides devil and vampire and the nun is healing you, otherwise this take a toll on your life, Drake said to Issei. I don't care, let's keep going, Issei said as his eyes turned a whitish yellow. With Aquino. Despite her burns, Aquino was still conscious and could feel the electricity in the air in a literal sense, as even a dimension away she felt Issei kick her peach. Issei make it hurt, she thought with a blush as she watched the screen. With Kiba. Sorry, not gonna happen, Kiba said, holding a fire and ice sword, being the best to stop the oncoming forces. Need a hand? Kaneko asked, showing up as Asia gave her the all clear and she sensed the oncoming forces, so she left the queen to Issei. Please, Kiba said, as despite not liking anyone to fight his battles and to fight them himself, he knew that he'd need help with the many special pieces. With Rias. Rias watched as Issei seemed to glow in white light. Is he using holy magic now? She thought as she wondered if that was possible. Yubaluna, take this, Issei said, shooting right at Yubaluna in a blazing speed. Yubaluna was blindsided, not even her speed could keep up. No phoenix tears now, Issei said loudly as his hand was encased in draconic fire, Aquino's lightning, and a bit of holy aura. Rias watched as the fist collided with the queen and soon saw a peeling bright fiery and lightning explosion. Aquino would approve, she thought, seeing the pained expression on the queen as she blacked out. Riser's queen, rook, bishop, and 2 knights are retired, Grafia said over the comm. Nicely done, Kiba, Issei said as before they parted he transferred some power to the knight, told him to use it in an emergency. By my count there is only Ravel left, not counting Riser, Rias said as she liked the female phoenix. 2 birds, Issei said as he took a breather, feeling a little tired, and took out 3 more vials. Need to make these count, he thought, as these were his last ones. Rias sent him a look, having Asia heal him again. I swear this is pointless, why fight when you'll just lose, Ravel said, appearing next to them. Who are you again? Issei asked flatly. Ravel Phoenix, Ravel said to him as she pouted. Yeah, well, I have my reasons. My MSTR doesn't want to marry Risers, but just happens to be added to that list, Issei said as he got up and walked to Riser's home base. I'm unsure whether to help or let him go at, Kiba said, arriving back with a few cuts and burns. Let him, Kaneko said to him. You have an awful amount of faith, Kaneko, Rias asked with a smile. Kuroka always talks about how strong he is, and how she'll make dragon kitty babies, Kaneko said with a blush, and her ears perked up as she could have sworn she heard her sister say, DMN right, I will. Rias got an annoyed look, reminded of her competition. With Dracula. He is not promoting, Surzek said, finding that odd considering Issei knew about this and kept walking to face Riser despite his earlier fights. He doesn't want to give Riser any room to think this fight wasn't fair, Dracula said as he understood Issei's reasoning, as it was one thing to destroy your opponent, it was another to destroy their reality. With Issei. Riser is surprised, Dragon Boy, that you have made it this far, Riser said to Issei as his hands burned. And I am surprised you are still talking in the third person, Issei said to him blankly, as the response was the building being encased in flames. With Tiamat. It's over, Riser is finished, Tiamat said with a smile as she hated the bird with the gall to insult her kind. How so? Surzex asked, the question on everyone's mind. The BLD Issei had. The last vials, Dracula said, speculating what she was hinting at. Yes, one of them was mine, it increases his dragon-like abilities, Tiamat said as she learned that after force-feeding him her BLD, as it was a good teachful moment. That is one vial. Who were the other 2, Lisa asked her curiously. No idea, Tiamat said, shrugging her shoulders. With Riser. What is this? Riser's flames extinguished, Riser thought in shock, and was soon blasted by a torrent of water before having his arms ripped off by Issei in his balance breaker, having an ominous red glow. Let's see how you heal from this, Issei said as the red glow exploded, as the glow was familiar to everyone on Team Gremory and those of the Bale family. With Surzek's power of destruction, he's not a Bale, Surzek said in surprise. Rias, he said, guessing Rias gave her some of his BLD. That's 2 off the 3, Lisa said to them. He used mine as well, Sona said, walking and having Tsubaki take over her duties. With Tiamat's, his boosted gear is in an overdrive state, adding in the Citri water power and power of destruction, Surzek's thought, seeing Issei literally tear Riser apart repeatedly. With Rias. How long before Issei gets tired, Kiba said as Issei was acting savagely and attacking Riser like an animal. He'll burn out or run out of power if he doesn't start thinking, he said, as this was a waste of power in order to fight Riser. He's not wasting anything, Kiba, Rias said with a smile. When me and Issei were watching Riser's past fights, his defeats actually helped us more than he knew, she said with a smile. Riser put on a show before he lost, and in that show Issei saw something, she said, as it was brilliant. Riser got slower after so many times of healing, she said, as Riser's magical power was the key to his healing. If he ran out, his healing was out of the question, and the more he healed the more he burned. Literally and figuratively. Kiba's eyes widened as that was an impressive strategy, and it made him look at Issei's seemingly reckless assault with more respect. He also left you with enough power to use flame delete in case he was taken out, Rias said as she felt like an idiot, not realizing that Kiba's sword could halt Riser's healing and do more damage to him. Kiba felt a little downcast for not trusting Issei more. Looks like Riser's fire is out, Kaneko said as she could feel Issei using everything in his magic, trapping Riser in a bubble of water, which had the power of destruction inside, and he was boosting a lot. This is it, Razor, Issei said as his chest glowed green. Longinus Smasher. Riser Phoenix has retired, Graphia said over the comms. Before the others could congratulate Issei, he disappeared. With Akino. You won. Although he was a weaker opponent, the healing ability more than made him more of a threat, Tiamat said to Issei, not faulting him for his fight as he put his body through the ringer slightly, as she thought him drinking holy BLD was moronic. Despite the powerful blow he delivered, he mostly stuck to his vampire and magical skills till the end, she thought, as it was an impressive growth and he utilized the abilities he gained resourcefully. He's smart, she thought to herself. Thanks for taking her out, Akino said to him with a smile. It was very Cece watching you avenge me, she said to him with a lustful look. Issei chuckled and rolled his eyes. Oh, and did it hurt? Akino asked cutely. If this is a fell from heaven joke, you clearly have no taste and no class, Issei said to her. Funny you should mention heaven and taste, Akino said with a giggle. I was gonna say, did it hurt when you got a taste of heaven, or more specifically, me, she said, licking her lips. Oh God, Issei said, getting a headache and seeing Akino smile more. SDST, he said to her. Yep, Akino said with a proud smile. Well, this is an interesting conversation to walk in on, Lisa said, making her presence known. Who are you? Akino asked, not liking the audience as she was hitting on Issei. You look familiar, Issei said, not knowing many vampires outside his group, but the woman looked familiar. Soon Carmilla ran in out of breath. Did we miss it? She said as Lenore crashed into her, followed by Kuroka, and they had immediately gotten up. Issei, why don't you tell me who I am? Lisa said with a smile. Issei looked at her carefully, her face striking a strong resemblance to Alucard, holy F, causing Carmilla to laugh and Lisa to grab his ear, going. Language. Lisa said to him. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author pyrohelixdrago on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.